Okay, we're in the flood and fossil room, and all the fossils on this table came from, in northwest Kansas, a ranch up there that's world renowned for marine fossils. Now, what I want to point out to you, we believe we have 3 different evidences here that we found on that ranch of rapid burial, because evolution says it took thousands of years for those layers to form. And but I'll show you some evidence that to me shows us that it's different. Now here's some vertebra, fish vertebra, that's flat. And you notice if you look at the corners here, they're bent, not broken. I've only seen one vertebra that people have found up there that's been cracked. And I've been told by creationists that it would take at least 6 feet of sediment while it was still bone to squeeze it down that flat. Now, many of the vertebrae that you find are at least oval, like this. And again, they're squished while it was still bone. Then you will occasionally find some that are real round, which is possible they just were not covered by as much sediment. And this is a string of shark vertebrae. This is tail of a fish, partial. One of the things on this table, people that are going up there to look for fossils, they can see what they're looking for. And so I haven't really prepped them and cleaned them up real good, so they're more like they would be found on the ground. Now here also, it's pretty common to find fish scales. And so again, this is something, everybody can find something. Then here's a tooth, and I'm not sure, I would guess maybe a Xiphactinus tooth, but I'm not really an expert on it. So you can find those teeth like that. You can find shark's teeth. Then this to me gets to be a little interesting. Down here, these are all coprolites or coprolites. I think it's pronounced a couple different ways. But what I want to point out to you is this is fossilized fish poop. And here is a fish scale that didn't digest. And then on the other, and this was found at the same place all together. Here is an insect. I'm thinking it's an insect anyway, shell, that didn't go ahead and totally digest. A lot of times you will find them smaller, like this one here. And then also at different times you can find, a large string of it, like this was all found in one place. Now these are jaw bones, and you can see the teeth in them. Probably a fish. Now, again, what we think we've seen is the squished vertebra is evidence of rapid burial. And in other words, quite a bit of sediment at one time. Now, if we go over here, we'll look at this picture next. A couple years ago, we found a fossil. We thought maybe it was a pteranodon. We thought maybe this was the head, but it ended up being Xiphactinus, and this is a gill plate off of that fish. Now the thing that shows us that it's not millions of years old is because surface plants had roots that encircled a lot of the bones because they were still getting mineral out of the bones. And if it was totally fossilized, they probably would not be doing that. We actually found a buffalo a week ago, and many of those bones of this buffalo which it was not fossilized, had roots getting nutrients out of it. And this is one of the first displays that I made. Originally, I thought this was a tail, but I found out later it couldn't be a tail because the tail is made different. But notice it's scalloped. And the only fish that I was able to find that had a scallop fin or whatever was a Protospirina natita. And so it's probably a pectoral fin. And this is another coprolite fossilized fish food. Okay, so now we've got two evidences for rapid burial. We'll go to the third one here. These are iron concretions. And an iron concretion is formed when either plant or animal, and we'll say in most of these cases it was probably fish, when it dies, the decaying flesh or plant material causes gases to go into the sediments. And for some reason it draws iron, in this case, out of those sediments back to where the fish flesh was decaying. Now we kept this for an example because you can see here's a shell of a clam, and then here's an iron concretion just on top of it where the flesh would have been. And this is iron pyrite. You can probably see some of the glittery parts of it. Now, one of the reasons we think this is important is that in order for there to be decaying flesh go into sediments, the sediments would have to build up quickly. Otherwise, those decaying gases would just go in the water and be dissipated. But if there was sediment there, then it would have the ability to draw that iron out of those sediments back to that and form an iron concretion. See, if it took thousands of years for those sediments to build up, there would be no iron concretion, and there probably would not be a fossil either because it would have deteriorated. So rapid burial is very important. Oh, one of the things that I do want to share is that showed me that that's kind of, it was from decaying flesh, is there was a kid found a fish about this long. Now part of his head was missing, but it had actually fossilized the whole tail. It fossilized all of the scales, and it was in the form of a fish even. It didn't squish it, but it was almost to the top of the sediments. And then right in a gill slit was a little bitty iron concretion, smaller than what this is. And so that told me that, that's probably where those gases would have escaped, and it would draw them to that source. Now you will find them out in the pasture, and notice it's kind of a reddish color around these. That's because there's a higher concentration of iron in this chalk than there is in the surrounding sediments.